It is so great. It feels so good to still see people out there not just making movies, right, but making horror movies, and the people making them still just really give a damn, you know?
Oh my god, they followed us.
I like you.
They're not gonna stop. They're never gonna stop.
They like you.
And today we have Talk to Me. And I'm just wearing the shirt because it's very apropos for this film we're about to get into. Before I get too far into this review, I do want to thank A24, funny enough. They recently have launched, they've had the AAA 24 membership thing. They emailed us first, fellow card holders, and they were like, hey, yo, we got an early screening. Overall, it was a good experience. I got free snacks, which by the way, the Regal and the Lionsgate stuff, for the early admissions, they don't give us snacks. They don't give us snacks. I'm not gonna lie, this one I was actually pretty excited for. I was anxious to see which way it was gonna go. For those of you that don't know, Talk to Me is technically the directorial debut of two twin brothers from Australia that basically have been doing YouTube videos ever since I was, in high school? Michael and Danny Filippo. Michael and Danny Filippo, or as they're better known on YouTube as, simply put, Racka. They've been making YouTube videos ever since I was in high school, as I said. And I think the first one that I ever saw personally of theirs was the Ultimate Nerf Gun fight, something like that. But they've made plenty of videos since. Everything from Star Wars versus Harry Potter to Ronald McDonald going on murderous rampages, and I don't know, just the way they do it, they put a lot of time and effort. It was kind of this type of stuff that I wanted to make when I was a kid, basically, these fun videos, just running around, wrecking stuff in the house, doing special effects, melding it with practical effects, and they've always been consistently of quality entertainment, funny more often than not, and even when it came to more horrific elements, very bloody and gory, and just it was a fun amalgamation of all that type of stuff. Because I've been watching their videos for years, and then out of nowhere they took a hiatus. Out of nowhere they pop back up with a video that says, hey, we've been gone, yes, but we've been making a movie. And I was like, oh, well, really, a movie? What are we doing? And they're like, yeah, we made a horror film. And I was like, oh, word, all right, let's see what's up, what you got. They got all this experience, they put it into a actual directorial debut, full-fledged film, and took it to film festivals. And after its first premiere, the people that were there loved it, and people loved it so much there was an A24 scout rep, because they were trying to just get somebody, a big studio, to pick this film up, and A24 bought it. And my guy, I don't know if their corporate intentions are for monetary gain, or I feel like it's more of a support of the arts, because they'll back very esoteric, obscure, and unique projects. And thank heavens. I'm glad they're there. A24 has helped to get some of my favorite, in recent memory, some of my favorite newer films produced or distributed, and this one's no exception. So like I said, the directors are the two twin Australian brothers, Michael and Danny Filippo, and their only other credit is the aforementioned YouTube channel. I think after this one, they have a very promising future ahead of them. In terms of the cast, this is technically an Australian horror film, so the names may or may not be known. I want to give some shout outs real quick. First of all, Sophia Wilde, our lead actress or actor, main character, Mia. Bravo. She's great. What a protagonist, or lead character in any case. She nailed it. I loved it. I would love to also delve deeper into her filmography, should it exist. I love to see what else she's done and see what more she could do in the future. I feel almost obligated to give a shout out to Joe Bird, who played Riley. But Riley in this film, he's one of the other protagonists, and let me just say, I mean, this might be a spoiler. If it is, skip ahead to this timestamp just in case it is a spoiler, but I will say this kid gives us a possession scene that might even rival that of Alex Wolff in Hereditary. it's up there. It's good. It's good stuff. In any case, all the cast, no complaints. Everybody did a bang-up job, especially our leading lady. Where to begin with this? The idea of someone that's, you know, it could be anybody, but just a couple of passionate kids that just put their, you know, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the work they're doing, and eventually made something that was good enough where critic acclaim has been fantastic so far, very good reception. And the coolest part is that it's actually really good. It's not just like, oh, an overhyped this or that, clearly low budget this, and no, this was a really good movie. It's a good story, first of all, at least, again, this is all biased because it's obviously my opinion, but I thought it was a very good story. I thought for a film that literally, and this is not spoiling anything, it's part of the description and you can glean as much from the trailer, it's a demonic, like, possession movie, like one of those. We've had hundreds of them, if not thousands in the past, but the fact that they were able to make a film about demonic possession and yet still have a creative spin on it, like the whole thing with the hand and the minimal, like, just a few word incantation, and then to let somebody into your body and all this, and to be able to have those quick rules, get them across, easy concept for any audience to pick up and understand. It worked really well. I think I've made mention of this before in previous reviews, but the tricky part about making a good and unique film these days is that you got to admit, all the stories that can be told have been told. There's stories, there's tropes, there's archetypes, all this type of stuff. Sure, if you get really abstract, you can make a film like, I don't know, Rubber, that's literally about no rhyme or reason and nothing, so in a way you kind of break the mold. But aside from the few experimental films out there, or films that do kind of get away from what is typical, you do also get films like this, where you have a premise that, I mean, we've seen demonic possession movies, as I've said, but it's a unique take on it, it's told in a different and unique way, ergo making for an interesting and engaging story that's also, like, creative and can still deal with these heavy thematic elements. Also, as a big old nerd and cinema geek, in case it wasn't painfully obvious, I do love when films, sometimes subtle, sometimes obvious, just homage to films past. And this one especially, with just general homage to horror. There's clear influence from films such as The Exorcist or Hereditary, even surprisingly Event Horizon, harkening back to other horror films of similar ilk influence in the filmmaking and certain scenes and narrative style. I see it as a sign of respect, as to, like, kind of, you know, oh, this is reminiscent of this film, or this film is similar or pays homage to X, Y, and Z. I'm almost positive, I think this film is, all the effects that happen in this film, for the most part, are either practically done, and you know how old MovieMan here feels about practical effects, but as far as I'm aware, all the effects are either practically done, or they're done with simple or cool, like, tricks of the camera or quick editing, little editing tricks here and there, but none of it feels like fake or digital, or there's like no like CGI demons or anything. That's makeup and prosthetics and just practicality applied to it. And again, that speaks to the effort, the time, the love, and the quality of the film as a whole. I will never shut up about practical effects being used in films, and this one's no exception. They really put their all into it. On that note, by the way, this film pulls no punches. This is a R-rated demonic possession film. There's never like violence for the sake of violence. It's not like, oh, how bloody or gory can we make this? How violent or insane can... No, it's nothing like that. First of all, whenever there is violence, they pull no punches. It's violent in some scenes, and it's like, it's just so quick and brutal. It happens very diegetically to the narrative. It makes sense in the context of the story beats, story moments. When there are extreme amounts of violence in this film, it's justified, it's earned, and it never felt over the top. It just felt brutal, and it felt raw and visceral and very impactful to the scene in which it was occurring. And I don't mind over the top violence. Sometimes it's fun and cheesy or whatever, but what really works for me is when you use violence to that effect in the film, to add it as an accent mark, a punch, not to be the all-cap sentence or the star of the show, to accentuate and highlight the violence of a scene. It takes a lot to get under my skin. It takes a lot to creep me out in film, and there are some elements of film that do unnerve me per se, or leave me with a impact afterwards where I'm kind of like, unnerved or a little bit jumpy. But usually the only things that typically will make me squirm or get to me are involuntary body horror and like cult horror. For a film that's about demonic possession, some kids screwing around with forces they shouldn't be screwing around with, thanks to performances and effects and sound design, there were some legitimately creepy moments where I was like, whoa, my timbers were shivered. I had some chills up the spine. There were legitimately creepy, kind of scary, and definitely unnerving moments. And again, due in part to the effects, due in part to, as I said, the sound design and the actors, especially whenever possession is happening. There's people can act possessed and you're like, oh, they're acting possessed. This one, again, it felt raw, it felt visceral, it felt like I was watching a borderline involuntary possession happening, and eventually these possessions did become quite involuntary. If you let it in, I let you in. I think legit the only complaint I have about this film is, and it's a very minute complaint, and it's for the sake of the story, you have all the characters and you have the main characters and then character that you're focusing on. So by the end of the film, there were some characters that didn't quite get a narrative wrap or maybe an arc, or I felt like there were some loose ends, which if I had to pick something to gripe about, that might be it. But that's borderline personal preference at that rate. Really all I got. Everybody else, I mean, it all works. I got nervous at the end, I'm not gonna lie. As I'm watching the film, I was really enjoying it, and then the third act ramps up to the finale. And again, I'm not gonna give away anything that happens, but I will say, I started to get worried in the third act that they weren't gonna stick the landing. And part of me is like, come on, man, like this is the Racka twins we're talking about here. They've never disappointed before, they've never let down, and sure enough, they did not. All wraps around, it all works out, it all came full circle. I think it makes for a great, like, kind of cyclical story, and the ending this film has is very fitting for the theme, the narrative, the story, and it's a horror story, right? So it all works. I was so pleasantly surprised because I got a little bit worried at the end, but no, like, it all came back, and this movie works so well, and I'm so happy that it did, and I'm so happy that I loved it as much as I did. It was great. This might be one of my favorite films of the year so far. Because I gotta admit, I saw the trailer when it first came out and I was a little bit worried. I said, oh, it looks unique, it looks interesting, but I don't know, this could go one of two ways. I've seen similar films of this caliber that have a really good trailer, and that's just it. They just blew their load in the trailer and it didn't go anywhere. I'm looking at you, Antlers. But no, this film delivered on all fronts, and I'm so happy that it did. End of the day, Talk to Me is a demonic possession horror movie, but definitely an R rating for it. Australian horror that's luckily been brought over to more of an international audience thanks to A24. I, as a fan of horror, and I don't mind watching this kind of like demonic, spiritual, spooky, ooky type of stuff, would recommend it. If you're down for any of that, or if you have similar tastes to me, see this in theaters 100%. See it in theaters. Hard recommend. I would not be shocked if this made it to my top 10 for the year. At the very least, stream it. I am certainly going to buy it when it comes out, but support the artists, please. I want them to keep applying their skill set and their talent and make more. This is the type of film they're going to make. I want to see more, and I want to support them. So 100% go see it. Hard recommend from MovieMan. So with only my I have the smallest of gripes, which make this almost a perfect experience, but only the smallest of gripes regarding like character tie-ups and all that. Sure, you can also make some arguments about the rules around the possession. We had some conversations after the film discussing, what worked or why it didn't work, but for me personally, I would easily give this film, it almost pains me not to give it the full, give it a low 5 out of 5. A low 5 out of 5. If it wasn't for that small gripe, and even the potential gripe of the possession rules getting a little bit like, oh, you have to kind of dig deep to figure it out, maybe, like, again, very small gripes. But yeah, this film came out technically in 2022 and made the rounds in film festivals, but 2023 is when it's getting its official release. So it's one of those films spanning or splitting itself over 2 years. That's my review on Talk to Me. Thank you guys and gals so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie I review. Thank you and goodbye, travelers.